Another Wednesday's come and gone, and I've got some comics. Let's talk about them. Hey, welcome to 9 Panel Grid. This week, we've seen the control of information through book burning, superheroic showmanship, and the all too real realities of the world outside the pages of these funny books. But we're going to kick things off this week with Action Comics 1076, written by Mark Waid with artwork by Clayton Henry. We're continuing our weekly adventure with Clark as he is trapped in the past now, as he had to try to escape from the Phantom Zone, which kicked him back to a Krypton that still exists before its explosion. Clark is having to deal with the ramifications of knowing that he can alter time as it is if he gives away too much information or alters the events that happen that result in the explosion of Krypton. So he's navigating those murky waters, and while we're dealing with a heavy notion of that, it's not bogged down by it. Clark knows that his true parents are going to be killed through the machinations of the Science Council on Krypton, but he can't do anything to stop them. So there's a real sadness, there's a real weight to this issue. But again, it doesn't get bogged down by that. They're really focusing on Superman and Superman himself, the fun of this book, the hopefulness of this book. So while it's there and while it could lean that way very easily, Mark Waid doesn't let it go that route. So overall, it continues to be a fun book, a breezy book. It's not terribly heavy, but it doesn't shy away from those kind of ideas either. And with our next book, let's talk Batman and Robin Year 1, Number 2, written by Mark Waid with artwork by Chris Samney. I'm continuing to have a really great time with this book, and while I was skeptical over the notion of a Year 1 book because the title Year 1 carries a lot of weight behind it, I think that they're finding the tone and the feel that we got from Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli back in the past with this new series. One of the main things I really love about this is that we are seeing a Bruce and a Batman who is not so sure of himself and does not have all the answers to every single thing that is happening in his life, predominantly Dick Grayson himself. Their antagonistic nature between one another, both as, parent and son, but also as, ward and, superhero. They're playing off of each other so well, and they're like really butting heads in a way that's extraordinarily entertaining. Dick Grayson, as he kind of grows with his confidence in the character, is a really fantastic trait to see, as well as now that confidence has taken, the place of the cockiness that he's had previously. And we're going to continue to see that grow and change as the series moves on. Most enlightening, though, is Bruce as he sees this take place as well. And you kind of get to live within his head a little bit and really get to, I don't know, live within within his head and see these things through his eyes. It's a really nice thing to do, and Mark Waid is the kind of writer that can bring that forward so easily. So overall, Batman and Robin Year 1 has been absolutely fantastic. Next up, let's talk Black Cloak number 10, written by Kelly Thompson with artwork by Meredith McLaren. This was a character-driven issue, but it wasn't necessarily our main character's issue. When I say character, I mean that they brought in every person and the kitchen sink with this issue. And by doing so, I kind of lost the plot thread a little bit. The whole premise of this issue was trying to get loved ones to safety before the end game of this arc takes place. And in doing so, there was a lot of little things that happened, but no big thing that happened. This was an issue that really showed me that this second arc is really being written for the trade as opposed to the individual issues, as it was really, really easy to kind of get lost in the things that were happening. And this issue didn't really do much to give me a satisfying event or series of events to make me go, wow, this one really blew my head off. The arc has been really sound. The issue, not so much, though. So, again, this is something that is going to read much better when you're reading it issue by issue by issue in sequence, as opposed to individually. Not to say it was a bad issue, but you're going to enjoy it more with more than one issue. Next up, let's talk Daredevil number 15, written by Saladin Ahmed with artwork by Luigi Zagaria. This issue was probably my most enjoyable issue from the Saladin Ahmed run so far. And I think they are starting to pick up on some of the things that I've been complaining about, which is the fact that this feels bogged down. It doesn't feel like there's enough movement in every single issue. And it kind of feels, I don't know, outside of the norm of what we get with Daredevil. And it's almost as if Saladin was writing towards the readers, because there's parts in this issue where it's almost like he's talking directly to us saying, yeah, this book has been in a funk. We're trying to right the ship. I like that we're kind of drawing in the final piece of the puzzle with everyone that's close with Matt, as Foggy Nelson has now been pulled into the fold. We've dealt with him very lightly in previous issues, but now we see that a demon has overtaken him. He is going to be wreaking havoc for, for our main character, Daredevil, and we see how that is further fraying all of his relationships. The best part about this issue has been the changing nature and maybe, I don't know, evolving nature of the relationship between Matt and Elektra, both as Daredevils, as maybe there's a slight rekindling or at least a better understanding of where they stand with each other. Again, probably the best issue that we've had so far. It makes me a little bit hopeful for what we're going to get in the future. Time will tell on that. But overall, I can't say I was mad. Next up, let's talk Department of Truth number 27, written by James Tynan with artwork by Allison Sampson. This continues to be a really fun exploration of a time period piece for the Department of Truth, as we're predominantly kind of dealing with the JFK assassination and the affair that JFK was having with Marilyn Monroe at the time. And the message that the books are trying to deliver in this issue in particular is the notion of celebrity and what does that mean? And are celebrities manifestations of the ideas of the populace, similar to the way that Sasquatch is kind of like an idea, a thought that has been drawn into reality through the Department of Truth and the mass idea, thing that's happening within these books. I like how they're dealing with those ideas and they're looking at different celebrities as well, as we have Marilyn Monroe as the predominant person that we're working with. But we also see other people like Hunter S. Thompson within the pages of this book. And he has some really wild and crazy things that James Tynan puts, the dialogue to that really kind of recontextualize and kind of twist the ways that we're looking at the entire story of Marilyn Monroe and the book in general as well. It's always been a book about who's working for who and, what are the big ideas of this world, who's crafting the narrative and driving humanity's story forward through the means of, again, this societal idea populist thing that's happening. It was a really good story. I'm really enjoying what's happening so far. We haven't quite gotten to the end of this. Allison Sampson has been the perfect artist for this look in the past, though, as kind of a pitch hitter for Martin Simmons as they could probably gear up for the next run in modern day times. So, all in all, this was a really fantastic issue. And with our next issue, let's talk Geiger number 8, written by Jeff Johns with artwork by Paul Pelletier. This was an interesting issue. It felt a little bit like a filler issue, but I think we need some more time away from the issue to find out if that is the case. We're dealing with the town that has been secluded and kind of protected from the nuclear fallout that has kind of crafted the entire Geiger and Ghost Machine universe. And what we're seeing happening is that Tariq and his ward are staying there, and he was helping protect the children and saved them. And they want to pay that favor back, but what Tariq learns is that they're basically protecting this town or controlling this town through the means of not misinformation necessarily, but the control of information or lack of information that they're being provided. The children, the whole thing that sparks this adventure is that they had a thirst for knowledge and they went out seeking these books. And what the town is doing is burning these books in a way to basically keep them where they are and keep the town secluded in a way of keeping them safe. Not necessarily total control, but it's a slippery slope that you're dealing with. Tariq is a man of science, though, and being a man of science, he is obviously in complete, disagreement with the approach that they're taking, and they decide to part ways. But in parting ways, nefarious things happen. So, all in all, again, this was like a setup issue. We're going to see some more things coming down the pipeline, and that's probably going to color the views of this book for not only me, but everyone that reads it after we understand what happens after this. All right, let's talk Ice Cream Man number 42, written by W. Maxwell Prince with artwork by Martin Morazzo. So, this issue starts with a trigger warning, and it's a very appropriately placed trigger warning because I feel like this book is going to elicit reactions, a multitude of reactions. In fact, this review, any review that people talk about for this issue, should have a trigger warning because the reality is there's a lot of things that happen in the world that we should all have a unified agreement towards and a viewpoint towards. And the fact that every human should be allowed a safety in their lives, right? They should have the freedom of their lives. They should be able to walk out their doors feeling safe. And that's not always the case. And that's what this book really talks about. When we talk about horror books, the predominant thing that we think about is monsters, the scary thing under the bed, the thing that's in the closet, what's lurking in the shadows. And it's not always what's lurking in the shadows. Sometimes it's absolutely what is right in front of you, and sometimes it's a horror of your own choosing. That's what this book is talking about. Again, this is going to elicit a lot of reactions, and I think it's going to be both good and bad. There's a lot to take away from this issue here. It's a struggle to get through. It's a worthwhile struggle to get through. It's a very difficult thing to read and kind of, I don't know, grasp. But I think it's a journey that most people, if you're willing, should take. This, in my eyes, is an issue of the year kind of contender type of book. That's how heavy this is. That's how meaningful this book is. And that's how well crafted W. Maxwell Prince and Martin Morazzo make almost every single issue of Ice Cream Man. But this one was exceptional. This one was important. It's something that people should read, should really take notice of, and really should comprehend and really, I don't know, just really look at thoroughly. All right, next up is Immortal Thor 17, written by Al Ewing with artwork by Jan Bazaldua. We're back on a roll with this book. We've had a couple consecutive issues where I've had a lot of fun now, and I think it's because we got through the mundane notion of the Thor that had basically had his intelligence stripped away from him when he's on Midgard. Al Ewing does his absolute best work when he's working in the grandiose and when he's working with big ideas and when he's Shakespearean with his dialogue and with his narration. That's what we're getting again within the pages of Thor, and we're working with those big, bold ideas, and we're kind of back on track with where this book was heading at the onset of the series as a whole. I'm really excited about that kind of thing. We're now, I don't know, we're back to us dealing with the Minotaur character. We kind of see the machinations of the Enchantress character, and we see within the final pages of this kind of what it is that she was striving towards. It was a little bit predictable, if I'm being honest, but it was nonetheless a lot of fun happening. So, again, I'm so glad that this book has kind of gotten back on the rails now because what we were delivered in the beginning is now what we're getting now, and it's absolutely worth it. Next up, let's talk Nullhunter number 2, written by Michael Walsh with artwork by Gustavo Vargas. Yes. Next up, let's talk Nullhunter number 2, written by Michael Walsh with artwork by Gustavo Vargas. So now we've gotten to the second feat or the second trial of Hercules, which would be the slaying of the Hydra. And again, just like issue number 1, this was a lot of fun. Nothing is heavy handed with the mythological ideas that they're playing with. It is truly a retelling of the feats of Hercules, but it's not beating you over the head with anything that's happening. And I think that's because Michael Walsh is a really sound storyteller, but he knows when to let the pages breathe and actually do the heavy lifting as opposed to the narration or the dialogue telling too much rather than showing just enough. This book shows everything that you need to see. It's a very brisk read because of that, but I would, warrant you to, maybe linger on the page a little bit. Take in Gustavo Vargas's artwork because it's absolutely fantastic when he's dealing with the cybernetics of our main character, the way that they work, the bulkiness of that main character with his huge mechanical arms and how he takes out each and every one of these hydras who, just like in the mythology, they resprout two heads when one is cut off. They play with that idea in a pretty fun way here. So all in all, I'm having a lot of fun with Nullhunter. I think it's a good exploration of the mythological Greek, tale that was told in a new and exciting environment. All right, let's talk Phoenix number 5, written by Stephanie Phillips with artwork by Alessandro Miracolo. This book, as now we've gotten this far into the series, has now what I've seen become something about an escalation game. The idea of the Phoenix and the Phoenix Force and its power is something that the entire universe essentially fears, as we've seen her take out entire planets, with the snap of her finger. And with that power comes people that are very fearful of it and want to either control it or, drown that fire out completely. And we've seen this council of individuals, this, whether it's the Shi'ar Empire, this Kree Skrull, all of these different cosmic entities, they have a council where they're discussing how it is that they're going to approach this. And through that, they make extraordinarily short-sighted decisions and side with people that they very clearly should not be siding with out of the absolute fear of the Phoenix. But the Phoenix is also doing things where she's kind of playing a dangerous game as well, as Jean feels like she's in control of it, but in control by way of, kind of dampening out the full extent of what the Phoenix is. But we've seen things come into play now where she might become even more so than she is right now. That Phoenix power might become more powerful as she maybe takes on a herald ship through one of these big cosmic entities. It sets up a lot of cool ideas that are going to be explored within the pages of this book, and I'm really excited to see what that exploration means for the Phoenix itself. My only gripe about this issue is that the Phoenix takes on Gore, and Gore was a really extraordinarily powerful villain in the pages of Thor, and Thor had his own troubles. And it feels like the Phoenix kind of just hand waved that, Gore away, and that the resolution of that fight or that, conflict was extraordinarily quick. And I feel like it could have taken a little bit more time to breathe, or I don't know, maybe just been displayed in a different manner. Either way, that's a minor gripe because I'm having an extraordinarily good time reading Phoenix. Next up, let's talk Planetary Expansion number 4, written by Christopher Retta with artwork by Alonso Gonzalez. So this series is all dealing about humanity and gathering up a subset of individuals as they go out to explore the universe to find another solar system with an inhabitable, planet that is going to be similar to Earth where they can start colonizing. And the people that are involved within this are very archetypal type of characters, but not necessarily the ones that you would expect to be inhabiting this ship. But they're trying to make sure that it's not just about the pilots of the ship or the astronauts, but it's really about the human populace. So you have people like the musician, you have a criminal element within this book, and also you have like things like, the actual astronauts or even a military quality to it as well. The page quality of this book put out by Critical Entertainment is absolutely fantastic. The page quality, it's thick paper. It's not cardstock necessarily, but it's a really nice, heavy feel to the pages itself, and the ink really does a fantastic job soaking into those. The story itself, this is a 44-page book. If I'm being completely honest, it probably didn't need to be 44 pages, as some of the storyline itself was padded out just a little bit. Probably deserved to be more than the traditional 22-page comic, but maybe not necessarily the double-sized thing that we were delivered right here and right now. Overall, this has been a really fun book, though. I like the ideas that they're dealing with, and now that we're finally gotten to the blast off of the ship, I'm excited to see how these personalities are going to clash or work together as they find this new inhabitable planet. All right, let's talk The Quarrel number 1, written by Mason Mendoza with artwork by Alonso Gonzalez. So this is the same artist that we were working with in the prior issue that I was just discussing, but this is completely different artistically. This is a one-shot issue that deals with nothing more than a bird flying through the city and having to deal with a predator that tries to attack and tries to take it out, and it's kind of escapades as it tries to escape and better this predator that's trying to track him down. This was a really beautiful looking issue as it's completely silent, so the artwork does all of the storytelling here that's been plotted out by Mendoza, but it is a beautiful watercolor look to it. Again, very dissimilar to what we saw in Planetary Expansion. Different artistic quality altogether. absolutely gorgeous, though. I love seeing the flight patterns that the birds take, the dipping and diving, the way that they dive into the water, weave between the trees. It was a really beautiful experience. I think that this was a definitely worthwhile issue to take a look at, especially being a one shot, as we don't get those things all that often. And the notion of a silent issue can sometimes get cheesy and overwrought. But something like this, I feel like, is absolutely appropriate and a perfect storytelling mechanism for the story that's being told right here. So, all in all, The Quarrel was a really, really good story. Next up, let's talk The Rocketfellers #1, written by Peter Tomasi with artwork by Francis Manipul. What can I say about Ghost Machine? They just put out hit after hit after hit, and this follows that same trend. This was such a fun issue, as it feels almost like Black Science if Black Science were hopeful and optimistic. We're dealing with a time traveling family here, or a science forward family, I should say, that gets stuck back in time and have to deal with kind of being of a heightened technological age and sense and knowledge, but living in modern times as they try to navigate and get back to to their own modern time, and also make sure that they're navigating all of the forces that are trying to stop them, and the villainous aspects of this story, who really kind of make their presence known and make their threat known within the first couple pages of this issue. Francis Manipul does fantastic visual storytelling in this, as the transitions both from the future to our modern day time and just scene transitions from one to the next. There's some really inventive, fun things that he's doing here. He's really honed his craft, and I love the way that he's really kind of driving the story forward in a really natural but fun, exciting way. This seems like it's being drawn as if it were a movie. I can see the transitions on film in my mind as I'm looking through the pages of this book. Really fantastic. Also, Peter Tomasi, unheralded writer. He's done so many good things in the past, but it seems like he always just seems to get undercut by some other run, some other writer, some other thing that comes up here. And I'm really hoping that this book really helps him take, I guess his perception, or the societal perception of him, up another notch, because man, he's doing fantastic work here. He's done fantastic things in the past. I want the greater comic reading community to feel that same way, though. So overall, man, I just loved Rocketfellers so much. All right, next up, let's talk Spectrum #1, written by Rick Quinn with artwork by Dave Chisholm. This was a really fascinating issue, and I picked it up basically on the premise that it was drawn by the same person who had done a Miles Davis biographical comic in the past that I really enjoyed. And this really was like really worthwhile. It took me by surprise basically. This really dives into the notion of music and how music can affect our psyche. And it's done so in such a loving, caring way by people that really have a firm understanding and background in music itself. We know that Dave definitely does here, because he's done, like I said, those biographies in the past. But you can tell that Rick definitely must have a background as he's writing all of these things. And there's a science driven feature within this, as well as the way that music is impacting this, our main character, our protagonist in this story here. You can tell that there's a subset, almost like a, I don't know, an organization from some kind of future that is trying to stop her from being able to access, I guess, these powers or these feelings or whatever the music is doing to her, that helps her kind of tap into these alternate dimensions or alternate, I don't know, trails of being. It's a confusing issue, but there's a lot of cool things that they're playing with here. The artwork is completely stunning. It's something that is different than we get from normal traditional comics nowadays, but I think it's something that is refreshing and bold. I really like it, and it leaves you with a lot of mystery, but it also gives you just enough to make sure that you want to come back for more and really find out what it is that is happening within the pages of this book. Where is this going to lead our protagonist? What are her powers really? What's happening that's making these manifest, that is either somewhat driving her crazy or potentially unlocking different parts of her understanding of reality? Either way, I'm definitely along for the ride. Spectrum was a mystery that I definitely want to see the culmination of. Next up, let's talk Spider-Man Reign 2, number 5, written and drawn by Kari Andrews. So this is the culmination of our sequel series, and I gotta say, it was fun, but I think it lost the mission statement. With the very first of the series, the first Spider-Man Reign, we had a mission statement. We had a reason for its being and for what it was trying to tell, the story there, which was Peter's mantra: with great power comes great responsibility. It was tackling the responsibility that he neglected. This story feels like it's intentionally the middle chapter. We have Empire Strikes Back vibes from this, which is great, but also it feels like it knows that it's going to have another sequel, so it's not telling the grandiose scope of the story that it could be telling right here and right now. I had a lot of fun with it, and I love the way that Kari Andrews has changed his style of artwork from when he was working in the past, when it took on McFarlane vibes and feels, to when he was working in the future or the present day for our characters, as it reverted back to the same or similar styles that he had within the first miniseries of Spider-Man Reign. It was an inventive story. It was fun. I like the craft of the book. And for the most part, I like the story. It was big, dumb fun, but it was lacking the heart and the feel behind the actual mission statement of the book overall. Gotta say, it was a little bit of a letdown, but not a letdown in the way that I don't think it's a worthwhile read. So I would say check it out and let me know your thoughts. All right, let's talk Standstill number 4, written by Lilo Ridge with artwork mostly by Andrew Robinson. So let's start with the mostly part. Andrew Robinson has been crafting the artwork within the pages of this book here for every single issue previous to this. And that's kind of been like, I feel like what this book was trying to do is it was a showcase of Andrew Robinson's art. And if that's the case, then that's stunning. I love that because his artwork is truly fantastic. The problem with this issue, though, is that there's an artistic change here in the latter part of this issue where it is completely jarring and completely out of the style of Andrew Robinson and what he's done in every other issue of this book. So, if the mission statement of the book was to showcase his artwork and we're not getting his artwork, I can't say that this book was truly effective. We did get Andrew Robinson for the majority of the book here. It's just that losing that artistic quality and losing what I thought was the idea behind it totally took me out of this book. It was completely jarring and I struggled. I really did struggle with this one. The big ideas in the pages of the book are really talking about, doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. You're not a hero necessarily if you're doing something that could be villainous, and it's okay. It's kind of a thin thing to be looking at through the story because we've gotten that idea so many different times in the past here, and arguably better executed ideas of that. But yeah. Oh, overall, I don't know, man. This issue in particular just kind of lost me on the series. Next up, let's talk Ultimate Spider-Man number 11, written by Jonathan Hickman with artwork by David Messina. The most refreshing thing about this series hasn't really been that we finally get Pete and MJ together and they have a family. For me, it's been that we've gotten to see Peter really kind of live and really learn the lesson of with great power comes great responsibility in little piecemeal ways with each and every issue that we've been delivered here. And this one felt like the biggest lesson that he's had to learn as he's been talking with Uncle Ben and they've been ruminating over the things that have happened within the previous year and the year that they've had without Aunt May. This was a really profound issue. This was a really good issue, and it's shown that Peter has grown in his confidence, and he's kind of learning again those lessons, those piecemeal lessons that he's been learning every single issue have been growing consistently over and over. And now he has that confidence, and with that confidence comes the quips and the fun nature of Spider-Man, and the way that he is just wisecracking with all the character. Wait a minute, is that a bald joke? All right, screw that. This book gets a 0 out of 0. I can't deal with that. Okay, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Um, Peter Parker is the Peter Parker that we've known and loved, and we're finally getting that wisecracky nature of him. And bald jokes aside, I do love that. It's great to see. My only issue with this has been that while David Messina's artwork has been really sound, I really enjoyed when he's been the other artist here when Marco Cacchetto is off the book. I feel like him and Wilson are still kind of finding their groove between the artist and the coloring of the books here, as things feel kind of muted and feel, I don't know, incomplete. Maybe they just need a little bit more time together here. I don't know. Time will tell on that one. But again, small gripe here for a fantastic issue. I've loved seeing Peter's growth. I love seeing Uncle Ben be a pivotal person in his continuing life and not just that mantra itself. So overall, again, Ultimate Spider-Man, really profound, really great issue. Next up, let's talk Wonder Woman number 15, written by Tom King with artwork by Daniel Sampier. I love the framing device behind this book as we keep kind of jumping back and forth between Diana and her daughter now and the different princesses as they kind of seek out their missions, and they're kind of taking out all of these different villainous characters for all different or for the same reason but with different machinations. And this is definitely showing a different Diana than we got in the previous issue, as she was grief stricken and she was drowning in her own sorrow. This Diana now has a newfound mission. She is vengeance and she is seeking retribution. The way that Tom King is conveying that and building upon that and showing us a multitude of different things as she is truly beside herself with this mission here of seeking out vengeance for what has happened to her and what's been taken away from her, but also the motherly qualities of her and what she's doing and how she's preparing for this as well as being a mother. Man, beautifully crafted issue, great storytelling. Tom King is doing, I don't know, man, he's doing fantastic work here. There's no notes for me. I think this is a perfectly crafted issue for the story that they were trying to tell right here and right now. And it was the perfect follow-up for the morose and sorrow-filled issue that we got with issue number 14. Overall, this is turning me into like not just a fan of Wonder Woman, but like a super fan. I want to explore every single storyline that's happening here. I want to go back and reread everything else because if this is the storylines that we can get within these pages, I'm along for the ride. And with our runner-up of the week, let's talk The Moon is Following Us, number 3, written by Daniel Warren Johnson with artwork by Raleigh Rossmo. Daniel Warren Johnson has proven himself to be a master of pacing and of cliffhangers, because every single issue of this and every previous series that he's done as a creator have delivered the same kind of feelings and the same kind of notions, as he knows how to pull on heartstrings and he knows how to leave you wanting more. This definitely does that. This has been an issue of revelations, as we see that the parental figures, basically our main characters who are trying to save their daughter who is stuck in this dream state, who's kind of being attacked by a virus which takes the form of, her memories or basically her dreamlike state. We're starting to see the cracks within their relationship start to form, as they've been doing this now for, not a short period of time, basically. So they're burning the candle at both ends. They both, as we saw with the doctors in the previous issue, they have different ideas of the ways to tackle this. And I think that we're starting to see, the cracks being formed there, as they're now butting heads and they're not in agreement with the way that things are supposed to go or the way that they're going to tackle the issues and save their daughter. They both want the same thing. The ways that they approach it are vastly different, though. It's a really difficult issue to talk about because it is emotional and it's driven by these parents, and to see them struggle in this way, it's a tremendously heartfelt thing, especially if you are a parent yourself, because to see yourself in their shoes, man, it would just be awful. It was such a terrible idea to explore, but one worthwhile within this book. On top of the parents being, I don't know, drawn apart from one another, we also start to see the revelations that the dreamlike creatures who we thought were the friends of the daughter, considering they are her kind of imaginary characters, we start to see that maybe there's something going on in the background as well there, where maybe they're not exactly who they claim to be, or they're not doing what they claim to be doing. It's a great exploration on this. Every twist and turn is worthwhile. Every cliffhanger is worthwhile. And they're delivering a stunning story here. And with my top comic of the week, let's talk The Power Fantasy #4, written by Kieran Gillen with artwork by Casper Wingard. This continues to be an exploration about the notion of the lesser of two evils as these all-powerful beings. And when I say all-powerful, I mean all-powerful. We're exploring, I don't know, what it means to control them and to keep the balance and keep the peace, as they are still very much of a human mindset, and they have emotions and they have triggers and they have things that make them want to go do wild and crazy things, even though they know that they have the power to split the earth in two. I love how they're balancing that, making it feel real, making it feel like it's truly something that in a world that they are dealing with, where they're seen as like basically nuclear powers. You know, it feels very Cold War-esque, but it's not missiles that they're talking about. It's living, breathing beings. I love how they're also dealing with how these things, because again, I just referred to them as living, breathing things. They have emotions such as love, right? And they have needs as these beings. And we're starting to see how the manipulation of some of these characters is one of the ways that they're controlling the better natures of one of these characters. But it also means that people are also putting aside their own humanity to be the peacekeepers of these all-powerful beings as well. This isn't a book about superheroics, right? And it's not a book about superheroes themselves, even though they are these all-powerful beings. This could be an X-Men book, but it's not of that same ilk. This is exploring the human nature behind that, the societal impacts behind that. And if you're looking for high octane action, this isn't the book for you. If you're looking for a character driven drama piece that deals with the same, I don't know, ideas and worlds that are built within maybe the pages of a big two comic, then maybe this book is for you. What I can say is this book is absolutely for me because I'm loving every single page of every single issue. So that's what I've got for you this week, but I'm more curious. What did you read and what were your thoughts? Do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe, and be part of the panel. Leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you next week.